The tits are out for Joe Pesci.
Now dig on this.
Yo, welcome to Classic Movie Banter.
We're here. Oh my God, you're here. I'm here. We're going to talk about movies. What a good time.
You know, we're that show that we talk about movies older than 20 years. We tell you guys if those movies still hold up today and if they're worth putting on the TV or, on your laptop or on your projector on a Thursday
On your
evening.
Apple Watch.
Inviting your cousins around for a good old time, a good old family catch-up. Maybe it's not good and old. Maybe it's like dark and young. I don't know. And,
Jesus.
And if it's worth putting on and entertaining the folks. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's an absolute train wreck. But then sometimes a train wreck is entertaining in itself. As long as no one gets hurt, we're okay.
It's like Brendan himself, a train wreck yet entertaining.
Yeah, I liken myself to Thomas the Tank Engine, except that episode where Percy literally just goes off the rails. He's just an absolute mess. He tries to like take the corner and he's just like there's too much steam in his engine. And he just flops on his side. He needs like a good intervention. He needs his own family and friends to come along. He needs Thomas to say, "Hey, bud, Percy, get your shit together." And Percy's all like, "No, the fat controller said I had a problem and I didn't believe him, but now you're saying it, Thomas. I can finally turn the corner." And then they choo choo off into the sunset. And yeah. But we're not here to talk about Thomas today.
I didn't think we'd get a Thomas the Tank Engine reference on this show. That's really hitting our audience where the market is,
Well, most of our audience is 6 and under. This is an explicit podcast after all.
Well, speaking of explicit, Brenton, we've got a pretty explicit film on our hands today.
Oh, settle down there, Nathan. What film are we talking about and why are we talking about it?
My Cousin Vinny, Brenton. It's 29 years old. It came out in the year 1992.
Whoa.
I know. We're talking about it today because if you guys want us to review a movie, we are doing all requests from the emails, as many as we can. So please email into the show if you want to chat about a movie. Today's email comes from Taylor, who's actually an old friend of both of ours. And he wrote on the emails, "Hi, boys. Look, I've been nagging you in real life for months to watch My Cousin Vinny, and since you've promised you're going to do movies from your emails, this is me saying do it. I know how much you love New Jersey accents, Nathan," from Taylor. So thank you, Taylor, for pushing us to watch this movie, because you're right.
Thank you, Taylor.
It's not just me who loves New Jersey accents, because Brenton also loves New Jersey accents.
I can't get enough of them.
Tell you what, after watching repeat episodes of The Nanny growing up, this is the next best thing. My cousin.
Did you like The Nanny growing up? Did you actually like that show?
I actually didn't.
Like, it's a shit show, let's be honest.
It's so, and like Channel 9 is obsessed with playing reruns of like The Nanny in Australia.
They can't get enough of it.
They really
and
can't.
what sucks is that usually it was usually after schools they'd play it, right? So it was for the kiddies. And they'd have the Brady Bunch on, and then they'd have an episode of The Nanny. And then I'm pretty sure that show, like the Genie show, that had the same actress in it, that was the Genie. Oh god, it was a
so
real
terrible.
time.
Kids these days, Brenton, won't know just being like shittily chained to like, Arvo TV, free to air TV.
Well, I never really watched it. This is the thing, but I have other. Look
at you with your cable and your bloody high channels, mate, from your high horse.
My siblings watched it. I had other shit to do, I had a life, as they say.
You were outdoors playing sports.
Yes, I was busy making cups of tea and eating pickles. So
it's with the expertise, listeners, that you've tuned in here today to hear the two of us recommend or discourage you from watching My Cousin Vinny. And who made it, Brent?
Have I made what?
Who made My Cousin Vinny? This is the part where you say the creative team.
I thought you said, "Have you made it?" And I was like,
"Have you made My Cousin Vinny? Were you involved in the process?"
I thought you meant it was more like it was a larger scale question, like, have you made it in life? And I was like, well, I ask that question to myself every day. But the person who made My Cousin Vinny, or directed it, I should say, was Jonathan Lynn, from a screenplay written by Dale Lorna. And Jonathan Lynn has directed such films as Clue, The Fighting Temptations, and that's about it.
There you go. What a filmography.
There's not much here, actually, but that's okay.
That's all right. I may not be hooked by that, but maybe I'll get hooked by you as you pitch me this movie. Can you pitch me the movie?
So, Nathan, I got a question for you to start off the pitch.
Oh, yeah? What's going on, huh?
Do you like courtroom dramas?
After our bloody A Few Good Men episode, I can't get enough of the courtroom dramas.
Well, that's a shame, because this isn't one of them.
Oh, no.
What we're looking at is a courtroom comedy.
Wow, courtroom comedy. What a turn of the tables.
Nathan, have you seen The Three Amigos?
Reluctantly, yes.
Yes. Well, in that film, the whole premise for that comedy was that it was a, what would you call it? It was a situation where people were mistook for being someone else.
Yes, mistaken identity.
So, in My Cousin Vinny, there are two young roustabouts, not really roustabouts, they're actually nice, law-abiding citizens. They go on a road trip through America's South, and they stop at a service station to fill up on some fuel, get a slushie. Oh, mate, I love those 7-Eleven slushies.
Like, Brett is like sipping like a slushie as he's giving the pitch. He's just like,
Oh, dude, if I was slurping a slushie, the audience would know and would be they would have already tuned out for sure. No one wants to listen to that shit. Anyway, they also buy a burrito and then they're on their way. Later on, they're pulled aside by some cops in a session where they wonder, oh gosh, yes, we accidentally, well, not really accidentally, but we took a can of tuna from that convenience store as well. But little do they know, they're actually wanted for murder because someone shot the clerk. Dun,
oh
dun,
no,
dun.
someone shot Kevin Smith.
Now, Nathan, another question I have for you in this pitch is, have you ever been charged with murder? Like full murder?
Legally, I can't answer that on air, but in real life, I'm just going to shake one on my head at you.
Okay, excellent. Well, you would know then that the best advice that I could give you if you were charged for murder would be to find a lawyer that can represent you and maybe get you off. You know what I mean?
You know, as a fun little conversation, we have a lot of friends who are lawyers who we used to go to school with. And I know exactly who I'd call out of all those lawyers if I were to be charged with murder.
Can I tell you that one of these young men knows exactly who they're calling, and it is their own cousin, Vinny or Vincent.
Cousin Vinny. So, okay, all right, I like this idea. Maybe there's some shenanigans of having a family member defend a cousin in trial. But who would play such a titular cousin, Brenton?
The tits are out for Joe Pesci, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like he is so titular that he like the fact that you asked that is probably an insult to Joe's honor.
Oh wow. Joe Pesci of Goodfellas fame, who would have got the Oscar for Goodfellas as he was shooting this. Fun fact.
Exactly.
So wow, this is his next project. Wow, what a jump.
So he has been studying some law, as so many of us do these days, and he is going to represent his cousin and to try and get him off and prove his innocence whilst navigating the wild South and trying to blend in and not let anyone know how inexperienced he really is. And that is My Cousin Vinny. Guys, I hope I sold you on it. That is my pitch. Nathan, thoughts, feelings, queries, concerns?
I like this fish out of water scenario, Brenton, you know?
Yes,
I like this idea of a New York lawyer coming into the, deep South and, showing them a thing or two about how they do it up east. And maybe the South is showing him how they do it down there. So I like this dialogue.
Mate, everyone is just showing each other how they do it. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like
There's a lot of innuendos in this movie. And so here we are. Well done. Thank you for that pitch. Look, we'll finance
My pleasure.
it. Like everything on the show, we will finance it. Every movie gets in, even you, babe. And yeah, let's talk about My Cousin Vinny, Brenton, because you know what? I had a good time with this movie, Brent.
I had a absolutely fantastic time with this film as well, buddy.
Wasn't it just a blast of a movie? What a fun time.
This is a movie that, for me, the best way to describe this and to sum it up and to suggest it to other viewers is to say, this is just when you want to watch something that is just a good time, that you just want to kind of not totally switch off. Like, you don't want to watch this whilst, you're playing Fall Guys or something, or you're doing your taxes. This is something you want to watch when you're just, it's the classic Thursday night film when it's like,
Isn't
we
it
need
though?
to watch something and we need to just lay back and enjoy it, and it's still got enough stakes in it that you care about the characters, but at the same time, it's got enough laughs in it and enough silly shenanigans that you're just going to be happily entertained. So there's something in this for everyone, I feel.
There really is, actually. And, it'll be, I neglect that, but, it's so true. This is, the most, pleasing movie I've seen in ages. And it's, it's really funny. It doesn't exactly reinvent the wheel in that sense.
No.
You're not here for narrative reasons. And, normally I would critique a film for it, but, it's just so funny. And, and Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei do such a good job in this that I'm willing to dispense with the plot because I just love seeing them react in all these quirky scenarios.
That's fantastic, Nathan, because knowing you and knowing nothing of your opinions on this film coming into it, I thought I was going to be singing its praises and defending it whilst you ripped it to shreds. Because you bring up the point of the plot, and maybe it's not...
You've seen it all. you're not learning much from this.
But I think what carries it along and gives it the depth, or enough depth as a viewer, is that the characters are really sound, and that is in part to the...
And there's so little of them.
Yeah, and more importantly, the chemistry between the characters, and not just the two main characters. Also, some of the side characters in the town are really just well fleshed out and are entertaining in their own right.
Yeah, they're there for exactly the reason they need to be there. They don't overstay their welcome. And it never stops being boring watching these two extremely joysy kind of people interact with this like small curious town that like rarely has visitors, and like that's entertaining. Like it never gets old.
On that note, what's even more surprising from my point of view is that I could easily watch this again, and I'd be happy to watch this again with some friends, and just, it's one of those movies that is endlessly rewatchable, not in the sense of something like a Nolan film where you're watching it again to really find out the nitty-gritty details.
Who is Vinny? It's like, yeah, you're not getting that from this.
And you know, like the ending changes the whole landscape of what you thought the beginning was. And
this is a little bit like Police Academy in a sense.
Yeah, totally.
It's almost cult-like as far as like how easy access it is, you know? It's like, I could see a midnight screening of this going off where people are like, Vinny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And that is, again, due to the fact that the characters are so strong and their arcs are quite strong as well. You know, like they go through this film and they change and they become, hopefully, better people. And so that's always endearing and great. And also, I think, like, in terms of direction and camera work, like we said, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's not reinventing cinema. It's not this isn't Hitchcock, you know what I mean? This is just, but it's still very well made, is my point.
Yeah.
Like some of the camera work in the courtroom specifically was quite well done.
Yeah, it's not being lazy in that sense. It's like,
exactly,
and also like A Few Good Men, we're not spending most of it in the courtroom. We're actually like learning a little bit about the small town and all that kind of stuff.
Precisely.
But it's funny because like the murder itself isn't that interesting. It's kind of just the catalyst to like get Joe Pesci in the room, because that's where the real like fun stuff is.
Well, it wears its heart on its sleeve, and it doesn't really hold its cards close to its chest, because the movie is pretty much on the side of these two innocent people. It never comes into question that maybe they did commit this crime.
Yeah, not like A Few Good Men, you know what I mean? Like
exactly.
there's no real suspicion in this. It's like once you meet a character, you know exactly who they are. There's no big reveals, there's no like two-faced kind of people, you know.
Exactly. The intrigue in this story comes on whether Joe Pesci is actually capable or not.
Yeah, he's a very inexperienced lawyer going into it, you know. The film's very blatant about that from the start. Like it is a sheer miracle that he gets anything correct, if he does get anything correct in this movie.
Precisely.
But he's the underdog, and so we naturally root for him. But despite the fact that, you know, he is the titular Vinny and all that kind of stuff, the person who steals the show, and because she won the Oscar for this, is Marissa Tomei.
I agree, yeah, dude. I think Joe Pesci is, like, obviously they're on equal footing in the sense of like their banter, hey, there you go, name drop. Their banter is so good, their chemistry is so fine, but her character and the way that her performance kind of captures your attention is something to be commended for. And obviously Marissa went on to have a fantastic career and still continues to have a fantastic career.
Whereas that Joe Pesci, he was forgotten. Like, who remembers him?
But my point is Joe Pesci was super well established at this point.
Yeah.
And how fantastic is it that I was worried at the start in terms of those two characters and their dynamic, because there is a significant age gap between the two of them. Not that that's necessarily always an issue.
No, nor is it that prevalent, I would argue. Like, I didn't really pay attention to the age gap.
Well, at the start I did. I was like, what?
Brent's like, you could do better than Joe.
It wasn't so much that. It was more so, where is this going? And is this a real relationship? Is this trying to comment on something here in regards to, like, are they both here for the good reasons? And so you're kind of wary at it at first. And I guess that is more attached to a stigma in society with the age gaps in relationships, that, you know, people think that one party's trying to get something out of it, or both parties are getting something out of it.
No, there is love there though. Like there is deep respect for what both of they do, and like
exactly.
Yeah, I never felt the relationship was threatened at any point, even though the movie may have flirted that.
Exactly.
It's like they're so bulletproof, and because they're such a cantankerous couple, and their greatest strength is in their feuding. Like they bring the best out of each other when they do clash. It's like they act like that old married couple, but in the same way that because they're so joysy, it's even more entertaining from someone who is not from Jersey. Like we almost stereotype them, but they have more depth to that. I love especially Melissa's. Her name's like, what is it? Mary Ann or something like that. Or it's like, oh no, Mona Lisa. That's it. Yeah, I love Mona Lisa's arc.
Yeah,
because I always found her to be way more interesting than Joe, as far as like her what her backstory was, like where she was heading, and like her role to play in the greater conflict.
And I liked that she was always on the front foot.
Yeah,
she was always active. She was never just there along for the ride. She was always trying to play a part.
Yeah, which is kind of like a lead which is the reason they kind of clash in the first place is because he kind of doesn't want her to do that.
Yeah, and at first I was like, why is that? And then it's interesting as you find out more about those two characters and their relationship that it is worth it, you know? Like those questions are answered at a point, and it makes you, again, like everything in this movie endears you to these two people. No matter the trials and the tribulations that they go through, like you want the best for both of them. And you also want success in terms of like there's two innocent people that clearly did not commit a crime and you want them to get off. And again, you're more worried about...
I wasn't paying attention to that. I cared more about Joe Pesci winning more than them getting off for murder, if that makes sense. Because that's where the real conflict is. And it's funny because like also Marissa Tomei introduces another stake into that we find out later on in the movie, which I found ridiculous, but also kind of invested in.
Yeah, I also, in regards to the case itself and, you know, what I was rooting for in the movie, of course I wanted Joe to be successful. I wanted him to succeed. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, this question was playing out. And it wasn't, again, like I wasn't sitting there invested in the actual drama of the courtroom itself and the case. It was more going, well, if those two didn't do it, who did? And I wanted those answers as well.
And it's really funny as well because we're saying that, and yet like this film is very well known in the law community for being extremely accurate as far as like how legal proceedings go. So it's funny that despite the fact, maybe that's why we didn't pay attention to it because it's so fucking accurate, therefore it's boring. So like we were just kind of seeped back and latched onto the character drama instead. Because it feels way more like a character study than an actual a deep driven plot movie.
In saying that though, in terms of the plot itself and linking to the case and whatnot, there was some tidbits that, and it's mainly using the way we learn about the town and its characters that actually come up in the court case, and facts and lessons learned in the town do pop up during this case. And I thought that was really well done in terms of reincorporating elements from scenes that were character building.
Yeah, there's good foreshadowing in this movie.
Yeah, that also became apparent to the plot.
Yeah.
Now, in saying that though, my criticism in this is that it's 2 hours long. And although that it does do a really good job of linking everything into the plot itself, I think that this could have about 15 minutes shaved off it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it could have been shorter. I didn't find it drag, but I definitely agree you could cut it down.
No, I didn't. I agree. I just think it would just... I would love it to just be under 2 hours. Is what I think.
So things we could have cut. I really want to know your opinion on this, Brenton. What did you think about the wake up gags?
I thought that is not something I think it could be cut, but I don't know if that side of things needs to be cut because again it was reincorporated later on in the piece. But in regards to those gags, I thought it was a really great insight into the mindset of those main characters, if that makes sense. And so I thought it was worthwhile. What I would cut if I was to cut something from this film is that there is a subplot that occurs with
the money.
No, in relation. Well, actually, yeah, that too. That could probably go. But in relation to the main characters' legitimacy. And whether they're telling the truth or not in regards to who they are.
Yeah. Oh, now see, I like that. I kind of dug that.
It didn't lose me at all, and I appreciated more time with the judge character because I thought he was a really great strength.
But I think it added stakes. It added even more stakes having that in there.
Yeah, but it was a bit ridiculous.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
How that storyline ends was the only thing that I thought I could have done without that. But at the same time, like you said, it does provide some entertainment there as well. So I can understand why it's in there.
That's the thing. Like, it's hard to point out something extremely unwelcome in this movie. This doesn't have like in Two Hands when there's like the supernatural brother. That's like so unwelcome to that movie. There's not really that kind of thing in this movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. I would agree with that. I just think that I think the film would be better for it. I think it would be tighter. It'd be a better experience. Or even though I said I would happily watch this again, I would more easily be ready to go in for another viewing if it just was that little bit tighter. Because then it would just be smooth sailing. There's moments in there that are not necessarily relevant, and they stand out because so much of the rest of the film is.
I know, I get that exactly. Yeah, if I was going to compile onto that list, you know, we're standing before Joe Pesci bravely saying criticisms to his face before he beats us to death. I'll change two things in this movie. First, I know it's made in the early 90s, but I didn't like that soundtrack. It dates the film.
Yeah, it was a terrible opening credits. It was quite underwhelming, and I was not sure what I was getting myself into.
Although in support of the music, I don't know if you noticed this, but the end credits song is about the movie. If you listen to the lyrics,
I didn't.
Okay, next time you play this movie, listen to the credits because it's literally a song about like he's from New York and he brings his like girlfriend and like they're gonna solve law down in South. Like literally the lyrics is about that, and I was listening to it going like, holy shit, this is excellent. but the rest of it's like also generic like 80s kind of like synth soundtrack. I couldn't care for. Cut that shit out. But that song at the end, I'm a big fan for. Thing number 2, Brenton, and the most pertinent issue I have with this movie is that they have committed the classic movie banter cardinal sin. Because once again, Brenton, we find ourselves in a scene where Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei walk into a bar and the whole fucking bar goes silent and stares at them as they walk in.
Yes, how could we ever forget that cardinal sin of cinema?
It started from Shanghai Noon that I cracked, and I just haven't been sane since.
It doesn't really land in this, does it? It's not really necessary.
Like, you know, and like to be honest with you, that whole subplot with him like trying to get money back from that guy, I'm like, I don't need any of this shit in here, like, because it doesn't really fund anything that relevant later on. It's like, just give money or give
No, there's some gags there, and it shows, I guess, his intelligence to a certain extent and how he is able to outwit individuals. But like, again, where that ends up, it actually raised more questions.
Exactly,
that were never really answered. Yeah.
So honestly, like, I don't have much criticisms for this place, so I'm happy to rate it if you are.
You're fond of me lobster, ain't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would give this a definitive thumbs up. I had a wonderful time watching this. Like I said, I think this is the perfect movie if you just want something that's easily accessible and just something to put on.
Yeah. If you don't have a mood, like, and you're on Netflix and you just want to put something on just to, like, because you don't know how you feel yet, this will just tick all the boxes.
I agree. I have known countless times when I've been after a film to watch that is this movie. You know what I mean? That scratches that itch.
Just to put something on.
And I'm so glad I found it. Yeah, because I know that there are going to be times in my life when I need this movie, and now I know this movie exists.
It's so great.
Thank you, my cousin Vinny, for supporting my life needs, you know?
It's so good to see that Joe Pesci reformed after being arrested for breaking into that young boy's home in Home Alone, and now he's turned to law. So I'm so happy for him that he made the switch.
Shall we talk about some spoilers?
You spoiled it.
What?
The movie.
Oh.
Can we talk about the state of Alabama, Brenton?
Of course we can. What is the state of Alabama? How's it going?
Well,
you know, what's the state
in
of it?
America, there are 50 states, and let's go through them all. The first one, Alaska. What are all the A's? Alaska, Arkansas, Alabama. I used to be able to do it one back in the day.
We're not American, Nathan. It's okay. Can you name the Australian states?
Yeah, mate, we got like 8 of them. Well, 6 of them technically. So like 6 states, 2 territories. It's so easy.
Do you remember Tasmania when you list the Australian states?
Yes, of course I do, Brenton.
Oh, good.
Tasmania is a wonderful place. I'd never shit on the state of Tasmania.
I agree. Actually, I haven't been there, but I really want to go.
No, I have, so I would recommend it. And to those who like visit Australia and you're not Australian, see Tasmania. It's worth an add-on.
I want to go on a scenic walk, pick an apple, and just have a crunchy bite as I walk the wonderful.
It's not populated by apple trees, mate. Like, that's not what you go to Tasmania for.
I realize that, but I will do that anyway. I will find one, Nathan. I will plant my own tree, and I'll come back in 10 years and enjoy a juicy fruit.
So the state of Arkansas, one of the things that makes it stand out so much that I was like, Jesus, at the start, is when the boys get pulled over, like, in their car. And it's so funny because they're making, like, shitty jokes about the state, saying, like, oh, they're all paranoid down here. And, like, as soon as they get pulled over by the cops, this guy just, like, whips out a shotgun from, like, behind the car door and just shouts at it. Like, could you imagine going through that here?
Can we discuss how stupid those guys are, though? That they still think they're there for shoplifting when they've been held at gunpoint, being run through the ringer for supposedly stealing a can of tuna.
There's no way they should have thought that. And so they're university kids as well. They're not dumb. Like,
that's right. And the film proves to us that they've got brains in their heads and they can discern things. So how could they not discern the most obvious thing that was going on?
It's like you know what? I thought I was going to take issue with that because like I thought I was going to take issue with this because like so much of this film is built on miscommunication. Because like you have a couple of scenes where characters are just using pronouns and not acknowledging the subject, but I found it funny. I liked it. I was groaning when the cops were interrogating them, but I was laughing when Joe Pesci first comes to prison. I thought that miscommunication was nailed.
That was a hilarious scene. You mentioned before that there was innuendo in this film.
Oh yeah,
and that scene was absolutely hilarious.
Oh my goodness. Because it just keeps going.
Yeah, and I love that it becomes explicit at points. That he's like,
yeah, because it's just the way people from New Jersey talk. He's like, no, I'm here for you. I'm on you. And he's like, you'll be on me. It's like, yeah, it's like, you better be fucking grateful. And he's like, the kid's like, I'm not gonna be grateful for you. Like, I'm not gonna jerk you off. And he's like, fuck it then. I'll go to him. Like,
Yeah, and then I like as well, one of my favorite ones were like, look, you're getting, either way, you're going to get fucked, but you're going to like choose how it's going to happen. And it was such a funny moment.
And the kid's just squirming, like, it's just so good. And then like his friends just like sitting on the bunk bed.
Pesci just plays it so well because he's so straight when he says it, and he's so just like serious and like, yeah, well, this is happening. This, before we start, you know, like let's get to know each other first. It's so funny. It's so ridiculous.
It just keeps going. It's like, it's just so stupid. It's like a comedy of errors. You know what I mean? It's just like,
yes, exactly.
The wrong thing is said consistently, and I love it for it. Like, I love that scene where Pesci is getting interviewed for the first time by the judge, and you can just see he's just sweating bullets, just making up shit on the spot. And the judge is like, you know, you're in my state, son. You're gonna have to play by my rules. And like Joe Pesci's like, oh yeah, I've won a few cases. Like he's playing it off so strong. Do you reckon he actually has a law degree?
Yes.
I would have found it almost funnier if he never was a lawyer. You know, like he's just a good shit talker.
I like in those opening scenes when he first goes to court. Now, Nathan, have you ever been to court, by the way? Have you ever been in court?
I was in a court in America last year, actually.
Really?
I was, yeah.
Why? Do tell.
So this is a random story. This is like right before the virus. This was like February 2020. I was in Vancouver for a holiday, and then it was like shitty weather in Vancouver. So I'm like, I don't want to be in Vancouver. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll just go to Seattle. So I literally just took the bus down and went to America, and I'm like, oh cool, Seattle. I'll go see the Bloody Needle. I'll, you know, get a hot dog. I'll get a Starbucks. I'll go to the Fisherman's Wharf. And then I did all that in like the span of like one day. So I'm like, shit, I got time to burn. And then I was walking past this like old courthouse, and I'm like, you know what? I've seen so many bloody court things my whole life. I've never been in an American court. So I walk in, and there's like a bunch of security guards just sitting around. I'm like, hey, is there any active cases going on? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, can I sit and watch one? And they're like, sure. So like they escort me in, take me to this huge like fuck off like courthouse, and I sit down there at the bench. But it was like raining that day, so my shoes were really squeaky.
I mean, it's Seattle also.
Yeah, we're in Seattle. So like I walk in the courtroom, and there's like 3 fucking judges. This is a huge case because there's 3 judges. And if these 2 lawyers just like going at it, and I open up the door, and I'm like squeaking in like the loudest like so I like go to the back bench, and it was literally like that scene where like the 3 judges looked at me, one of the lawyers looked at me, and all like and all the people on the back bench just looked at me. That scene happened in real life.
And you just pulled up a pew and sat down and had a watch.
But I watched. It was about this like pharmaceutical case about like the hospitals not taking care of their patients or something like that. But it was really interesting because the bloke who was the lawyer was so bad. Like the judges kept calling him out. They're like, oh, no. This case shows that actually did happen. And the guy's like, oh, geez. Like you could tell he's like fresh out of school. It's great. I'd recommend it.
Nathan, I guess.
I'd recommend it.
How long were you in there for, by the way?
Oh, like a good hour and a half just watching it. I didn't get bored. It was fascinating. I liked it.
It was worth it, yeah. You could have stayed for longer if you weren't, you know. If you
I left because it finished. They adjourned or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It was very good. But like there was all these like, I think patients who had stakes in the case who were like sitting in the bench. Obviously they were very serious about it, but I was just sitting there with popcorn being like, fuck yeah, this is great. Like,
yeah. Did you actually have popcorn? No.
No, that would have been a faux pas. But I'm all for it. Go to court.
2 questions about this experience.
Yeah.
That relate to the film. The first one is, what were you wearing when you went in there?
Oh, I had a big black coat. I had a big black coat, so okay. I was appropriately dressed. But I wasn't runners, which was squeaking, so that's a big no. Don't do that.
Well, that's probably why you got the looks. Second question was, you mentioned that one of the lawyers was really bad. Nathan, was he as bad as the stuttering lawyer in this movie? I think he's meant to be stuttering. I can't decide if he's meant to be stuttering or if he's an absolute, like, drug addict. I'm not sure. Do tell.
Let's talk about this lawyer, because, like, no. The lawyer I had was not as bad as this guy. Because Joe Pesci, right, we see him kind of fuck up in, like, in the examination of the evidence, all that kind of stuff. So, like, oh, let's get a public defender. The 2 boys think. So they get this guy who seems like a good guy, but he doesn't disclose to the boys or the audience that he has a little bit of public speaking problems. E.g., this fucker's like a worse version of Professor Quirrell.
Nathan, it is absolutely ridiculous. It's not even a stutter. Like, I can't decide what it is. I can't decide if he's had too many whiskeys.
I don't think it's a drunk stutter. I think it's a stage fright stutter. I think
that's what it's meant to be, but this is something else.
This is something else. This is like
absolutely insane.
He's like Joe Pesci. Such an honor to meet you.
He has like slurs though. He's like, the defendant, and you're like, what?
Like, what is going on?
Look, mad props to everyone that actually has speech impediments out there.
And also for the bloke who decided to be a lawyer with that. It's like, geez, that's a life. Like,
yeah, good, but yeah, good on you. Follow your dreams. But I am just concerned as to how accurate this is, because in my experience, I've never come across, like, even on like YouTube videos, when you look up people with speech impediments, I've never seen a case such as this. And it was one of the only moments in the movie that it didn't feel grounded for me. It was actually that guy, and
It was very
wasn't
slapstick.
sure.
Especially how it finishes with like the guy standing up saying, "Oh, have Joe Pesci instead." It's like, wow.
Yeah.
What a public decry of your lawyer. It's like, oh.
Yeah, the judge is like, mate, sit the fuck down. Like,
I feel sorry for the person like typing up the court case on the side. Like, do they put in like the hyphens for the stuttering? Like,
could you imagine that transcript? I would love to read it.
this whole fucking court case like that. That would be great. I got no more uses for this guy. It's like, it's so great. But like, that lawyer's ridiculous.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I did kind of want him to have like a little turban and be like, murder in the town. Thought you ought to know. And then just collapse. So.
I like the turn of Quirrell at the end. Joe Pesci's like Quirrell at the end when Voldemort's attached to the back of his head. Like, that's the juxtaposition between the two characters. It's like pre-Quirrell and post-Quirrell. So, yeah, when Pesci's going at it, it's like, he might as well be saying, what does he say when he's like...
No, boy, I tried to kill you.
Yeah, that's it. No, boy, I tried to kill you.
He said that's so stone cold. He's like, oh no, what's he's like, Master, you're not strong enough. Right before he takes off the turban.
Master, you're not strong enough.
I wish I just saw like Quirrell's face as like Voldemort was drinking the unicorn blood. Just like Quirrell's just like hanging out back.
Doesn't he say something like, get back here? Like, because Harry like turn around and look in the mirror.
Oh no, Voldemort's like, seize him. And like Quirrell does like the most like flamboyant click, like as the fire comes up. Like he does a little like...
Yeah.
Oh, what a stupid scene. You know what's really interesting? Quirrell dies the same way as Voldemort, I realize. They both kind of shadow him to ash.
Yeah, that's true. But
Yeah.
that was absolute trash when that happened in the Deathly Hallows Part 2. He should just die.
He
He's a
should
dead
just die.
human being.
Do you reckon Harry had PTSD? Like, because he's an 11-year-old child. He just saw a man crumple. Like, I reckon, like, that summer, going back to the Dursleys, he's like, man, I fucking saw shit. Like, I saw a man crumple.
Well, I think, like, one of my favorite aspects of that book series is actually, controversially, it's actually the flash forward at the end of the last book. Like, the last...
Oh, the little cursed child bit. Yeah.
When he's sending Albus Severus Potter, which is the worst name for any child, to Hogwarts. And that scene, what I love about it, and I think Rowling's spoken about this among many
things
in her career. I think she spoke about this, and I totally agree. It's like, in terms of like PTSD, it's like Harry is someone that is a prime candidate for having probably PTSD episodes, given the amount of trauma he's been subject to over his... It's so heroic that he doesn't, you know what I mean? That he's able to live his life, and like, I love stories like that when characters are actually just like happy with a normal life, and not saying that, it's not heroic to have PTSD. I'm not being against PTSD.
Yeah.
It's like, oh gosh, if you have PTSD, you're not a hero.
It's like The Punisher. The Punisher deals with it very beautifully in the sense that you watch him go through the loss of his family.
Exactly. I just like stories that accommodate that into them. There's no PTSD in My Cousin Vinny, though. Or maybe there is.
But that's why I would like to see a courtroom drama set in the Harry Potter universe, Like, I feel like Vinny would be very welcome there. We do get Order of the Phoenix a little bit, like...
Yeah, we only get a taste of it, but even in Goblet of Fire, when we have the flashback to...
Hello, father.
Yeah, exactly. Could you imagine if Vinny was in that court case and was...
Just Joe Pesci rocks up. Hello, father. I'm not your fucking father.
I'm done with this guy.
Yeah, I'm done with this bozo. Just like Marissa Tomei's just chewing some gum, like on the side. She's like, he's a deathly eater. He's a death eater. I did his hair last week. He has the tattoo. Like, you know what I mean?
Man.
Oh no, Marissa Tomei does the same speech on like cars, but about like brooms instead.
Yeah. On tire tracks, yeah.
Yeah, she's like, a broom. I know the fire bolts. They leave no track.
It was a Nimbus 2000, not a Nimbus 2001. Let me tell you.
That would be amazing. This is what they should have done with the Fantastic Beasts films. Just go to New Jersey.
I would have loved to have when Harry rocks up to court over his use of magic underage outside of Hogwarts when he defends Dudley from the Dementors. I would love that he rocks up to court and they're like, oh, there's no representation, and then Joe Pesci just rocks up. Like he just waltzes into court.
I would love that. Even Marissa Tomei, she's like, the evidence that the Dark Lord has returned is incontrovertible.
I think it'd be quite funny as well. I think Joe Pesci would be one of the only people in existence, muggles in existence, to be able to like mop the floor with Professor Umbridge.
He'd be like, fuck you, Fudge. You got a whole fucking court in here. You don't even need it. That's Dolores. I don't like her.
Everything this pink lady just said is bullshit.
This is what Harry Potter needs. Forget MCU. We need like Harry Potter you. This is this is where Joe Pesci belongs.
Absolutely.
You know what? It's so funny in this movie, like all the comedy about Joe Pesci being a lawyer, but I actually felt a little bit touched and a little bit warmed about when we hear his story as to why he became a lawyer.
I did too.
Yeah.
I loved that story, dude. When he told the story of how he went to court over a parking ticket, I think.
Yeah,
and
he's just a good
he
arguer.
basically berated the police officer in court until he gave in and understood that it wasn't his fault. And that judge just took a liking to him. But like this kind of links to one of my criticisms though, how I said that whole storyline with his background and also whether he's a legitimate, whether he is who he says he is, because he completely lies about his career in court.
Which the judge doesn't really care about at the end.
Because that judge that, he tells the story about was the one that stepped up and just said, oh yeah, he is that guy, even though that guy doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So that judge, who is a judge,
Just committed
has
a
put
federal
his whole
crime.
career on the line for the sake of Joe Pesci, and I just don't buy that at all.
Yeah, Suits has the same issue with that as well. It's a lot of people high up in the industry just committing federal crimes like nothing else. You're just like, ooh, this doesn't look good. But he does all of it in the name of love. Like, I actually liked that Marissa introduced that stake, that they were waiting to get married.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of Guys and Dolls, actually.
But hey, dude, lots of people commit crimes in the name of love. You know what I mean? Like, he has completely lied in court and to a judge about who he is and his credibility.
That's funny, because if the judge found out, he could completely dismiss the case in general because the lawyer was lying.
Exactly.
Or there could have been wrought for naught. And like, it is crazy that like
Exactly.
he risked his cousin's life just to get like a ha-ha moment, Like,
Yeah, exactly. So I just don't think it needed to be there. When he started sprouting on about like, oh yeah, I've done like, heaps of cases. I did an axe murderer once, and I was like, this isn't sound. This isn't going to hold up. But he gets away with it.
he does.
Which is a touching moment as well. I liked at the end that they have that discussion that he was like, I just wanted to do it for you by myself. Like, I wanted to do it to you and prove to you that like I could do it.
But he never had to prove himself.
Yeah, exactly. And then she kind of plays up to that, and it's quite a funny moment of banter and understanding between the two of them, and understanding for the audience as to why he was so desperate to complete this case without help.
How extraordinary. Like, people always talk about like, you can't handle the truth. It's like a big speech moment, that whole speech. But I was just as enthralled with Marissa Tomei's speech on Cars. I was like,
Oh, dude.
whoa, that won the Oscar. Like,
When he won the case, dude, I had like a little clap moment. I gave him my little fairy clap. So I was like this.
and they're gonna win. Like, this is not the movie where they're gonna lose. Like,
Well, the thing is that what's lucky, it's lucky for Joe in this film, because if this was his first case and those two boys hadn't been innocent, he would have been in some real deep shit. Like, thank goodness that like they were actually innocent and there was evidence to support
and that's
that.
the thing. He knew from the get-go, like, they didn't have the murder weapon. Like, he knew the evidence was shit. So he knew he could kind of like play around a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
because he knew how
exactly.
weak it was. Like, so I did like that. But like, in saying that, like, yeah, I didn't care for the money subplot with the guy just owing the $200. Like, I didn't need to see that Joe Pesci was tough. Like, we know Joe Pesci's tough. Like, we don't know anything like that.
Yeah.
Did you like that the judge really cares about uniform in this court?
Oh yeah, I did enjoy that. The funniest gag in that was when he comes back to court the second time and the judge goes, I thought I told you last time not to wear that. And Joe's like, I thought you were kidding. Like,
And it just hard cuts to him in prison again. It's just like,
oh, how many times is he in contempt of court? Like, how
3
many
or 4
times does he go
times,
to
like-
prison? The funniest time is when he stays in court overnight, because in jail overnight, because he's like, well, I'll probably get a good sleep, so just get me in the morning.
Christ, that owl screech is petrifying. I'm like, do owls screech like that?
Oh, listeners, let us know. Write in if the owl in My Cousin Vinny was accurate.
I would just love that. Like, Harry's just sleeping at Hogwarts one night, then fucking Hedwig is like, just Harry's like, shit. Like, they all like jump up. It's funny because Joe Pesci's latest suit reminds me a lot of like Ron's formal suit.
Yeah.
That kind of like shitty, like, it would have been great. Like, I got this from Mrs. Weasley.
Oh, it does look like a bad set of...
Dress robes? What does Ron say? It's like, this looks like it was my Aunt Bessie.
It smells like my Aunt Bessie. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What a moment. I was always liking that scene, like Rupert, like it's probably not... The dress robes are bad, but they're not as bad as like that hairdo you have.
And you're still taking beautiful Indian twins to the formal. It's like, you're still doing okay, mate.
But it's not Hermione. It's not the love of his life.
No, do you reckon Ron still has that formal dress? Like, do you reckon Ron passed it to his kid?
Absolutely.
That's what Cursed Child needed. Like, just them wearing
For
that.
sure. He's like, you're wearing these. It's like, why? It's like, hey, if I had to do it, you're doing it.
It'd be really funny if like Hermione like developed a kink for it. She's like, that's the moment I knew I loved you, Ron. So she gets him to wear it. Like,
Oh,
maybe
funny.
it's time for some special segments.
Special segment.
Ooh, so special. I really want to talk about should this movie be a TV show? Because to be honest with you, Brenton, this is the movie I think that feels the most like a pilot. If that makes sense.
I completely agree that this should be a TV show.
Like the premise is so perfect.
Both hands down on the table. Like, absolutely. I want to see where these two characters go.
Yeah.
I want to see like what antics they get up to and what cases Joe takes on and how Mona Lisa helps him and how that relationship develops. Like, I think I agree. I think it'd just be an awesome TV show.
I agree, because like...
Could you imagine like it's a crime drama like Law and Order or you know Criminal Minds and then My Cousin Vinny?
But there's not too many crime comedies, you know? Like, I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine is kind of the only one that kind of wrestles that in the mainstream.
That's true. Maybe it's like Better Call Saul. It's like a dramedy. It's like Better Call Vinny.
I would love Saul Goodman versus Vinny. I reckon that's just a crossover waiting to happen. It'd be Gus Fring trying to control Vinny, and Vinny's like, I don't work for the mob.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I know for the sequel that they did try to develop a sequel because this film did make money. I know they wanted to take Vinny to Europe next for the sequel.
Oh, I don't know if that's... Oh, I guess like you're trying to find an alien setting that he can...
Europe.
Not the same. I'm saying Europe is alien. I'm saying, but I'm using alien.
Fish out of water for Vinny. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, like somewhere that he's like a fish out of water, like you said. So
if they put the two of them anywhere in America, I think it could work really well. Like, it just... You know what? If they even take out the vulgar language, I reckon this could even work as like a kid's cartoon.
Agreed.
Like a grumpy lawyer with like his hairdresser girlfriend who's also like kind of working behind the scenes. Like, I just think this is so applicable for television. I'm surprised it just hasn't been made.
So, speaking of fish out of water scenarios, though, what if Vinny came to Australia?
Oh my God, that needs to happen. That so needs to happen. But I don't think it can be like Sydney or Melbourne. I reckon it has to be like way out back, like rural Australia. Have you seen Mystery Road?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Mystery Road. It's like it's an Aussie crime drama set out in the outback, and it stars Judy Davis. So I could so see like Vinny, My Cousin Vinny meeting Judy Davis.
I think that could definitely happen. I think Australians would really take to Joe Pesci and Mona Lisa, though. I think they...
Also, all of our public TV is like exclusively crime dramas or comedies, you know? It's like... Our free-to-air TV loves American stuff like that. So I can so see, like, Joe Pesci just being like, you know, in, like, Alice Springs and, like, you know, solving, like, a murder. And they're like, what do you think of the case here, Vinny? It's like, well, there's lots of knives everywhere. So I don't know why you all hold on to them so closely. Or he's, like, mauled by an animal. Oh, that's the thing, he can't sleep because of all the wild animals coming at him. Like,
yeah, that'd be hilarious. Like, he wakes up one morning, opens the door, like...
It's like a kangaroo.
Like that scene where he just bursts out of the cabin and starts shooting his revolver everywhere. But there's like just a crocodile there, like a big saltwater croc, and he's like, oh, and then just like slowly backs away.
That'd be great. I'm all for the Aussie adaptation. My Cousin Vinny. No, they do like an Aussie adaptation. They're like, My Cousin Rob.
My Cousin Bruce.
Crikey, he hasn't studied law at all.
My Cousin Bruce. How many Bruces are there? My Cousin Bruce is Bruce number 85 in this family. Oh, my Cousin Bruce is number 23. Oh, Bruce. Bruce.
Do you think this movie would work well as a musical?
I think it could. I think there is potential there that it could work as a musical. As I always say, though, like, not every movie needs to be a musical, but I think there is potential that it could work.
I think it's a very silly premise, which normally lends well to musicals. Like, silly premises and silly comedies normally translate very well.
I mean, there's already been, like, a legal movie comedy made into a musical, which was Legally Blonde, so maybe My Cousin Vinny's the next one.
I mean, we both didn't like Legally Blonde, did we, when we saw that in theaters? You know, the stage musical.
Oh, yeah, the stage musical, yeah.
You and I
wasn't a big fan.
But I think My Cousin Vinny could do quite well.
I mean, the film itself, I liked Legally Blonde, the film.
Same.
I remember enjoying that. But yeah, the musical, not as much.
But I think like you could have him burst into song, or like Marissa Tomei, you know, she's like singing about cars. It'd be like the Grease musical, you know, like they wheel the car onto stage and she's like, I got mud in my tires. And then she's like, mud, mud, mud.
Nathan, you should be a lyricist.
I really shouldn't, you know. I'll just adapt the poems of T.S. Eliot. That's what I'll do instead.
Okay, sounds good. Cats 2.0. Nathan, this is the most important special segment we may have ever done on the show, and the most relevant segment we've ever done on the show. MCU is the segment where we discuss if this film's characters could join the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Nathan, what of the characters could easily join the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Is Joe Uncle Ben?
Okay, that's what I want to ask. Is Aunt May, like Marissa Tomei, just like after this movie? I think it could work. Because I know in The Amazing Spider-Man, they tried to weave a narrative where like the Parker parents were like kind of like agents or whatever it was. So here's what I like to think. They came back to New York. Maybe Joe's career didn't go so well. as he did in Alabama. So like he's decided to stay in New York and get these new identities as the Parkers. And one day, Joe Pesci as Ben Parker took out young Tom Holland outdoors and got shot. And so here is May Parker now as Mona Lisa.
Mate, this is the most seamless integration into the MCU. This should be part of the MCU catalog.
It would be so much funnier if they re-edited this in, like Marissa Tomei did, like a New Jersey accent. So as like Iron Man meets with Marissa Tomei, just to like say, oh, I'm here to talk to your son. She's like, what do you think you're doing in my house? She's like, I don't know you, you don't know me.
Let me tell you all about motor transport.
What are you swinging around buildings for, Peter? You got a good car. Like, it would be so great.
So good.
Oh, it'd be so good.
I'm
She's
down
like,
for that.
she like sees Iron Man like pull up in his car, dropping off Tom Holland, and she's like, yeah, it's a nice car, but you know.
What if Tom Holland as Peter Parker had a scene similar to Spider-Man 2 where Peter has the repeated scene in the car where he talks to his dead Uncle Ben, and maybe he has a scene with Joe Pesci.
That would be amazing. Joe Pesci's like, what the fuck are you doing, Tobey Maguire?
With great power comes great responsibility, Pete. Come on, man,
You're
get on
losing
it.
the love of your life to an astronaut. You're a weak boy. Stand up for yourself. Would you let any astronaut tell you what to do? Like Joe Pesci's just whacking Tobey Maguire, and Tobey Maguire's like kind of crying at the side. Like,
Perfect.
I think it would, also he wouldn't die because if like the criminal in like Spider-Man 1 just like came up to like, remember when Ben Parker dies, he's like, put the gun down, son. If it was Joe Pesci, he would have just like knocked that guy out in a heartbeat. Like Tobey Maguire like runs up and sees like the criminal passed out with a little bag of money, and Joe Pesci's like, that guy's fucked.
Maybe it's a repeat of the scene where he's trying to get the money off that guy, and he's like, you know what? You're telling me you're gonna kick my ass. I like Plan B, where I kick your ass.
Yeah, that'd be great. Like Thanos is about to like snap his fingers, and Joel's like, how about instead of snapping your fingers, we take the gems? Thanos is like, oh no, Daredevil is where he belongs. He bloody belongs in a courtroom with Charlie Cox.
Oh, yeah.
That's where it needs to happen.
I think that could happen.
Oh.
Yeah. Kevin Feige, like I said, bring Pesci to the MCU.
Even though he's retired.
Yeah, no, do it. I reckon he'd come out of retirement just to have a scene with Tom.
Get Scorsese on board. We know how much Scorsese loves Marvel.
Can't get enough of him. He loves roller coasters too.
What stills this movie?
Ooh, it's blinding.
Nathan, what stills this movie is a segment on the show where you or myself, we pick a single frame from that film we are reviewing. We pick it on the basis of it being a good piece of cinematography, something interesting to talk about, or just something that is quite funny. I actually think this is option 2 and 3 put together.
Yes.
It has got interesting aspects to talk about, and it is also quite hilarious. And if you want to see it, listeners, please go onto our links below, which will take you to Instagram or YouTube, where this still is located. Take us away, Nathan.
There's a scene where, like, you know, I think it's the first time they wake up early at like 5 a.m. So they go to like their hotel's like kind of like downstairs kitchen to get brekkie. And they're watching this guy just like kind of cook what looks like an egg on a stove, but it's kind of just like this white clump that you can tell is like this most processed shit. And so they're like, oh, can we have the menu? So the guy passes over the menu. And on the menu, which is this still, there is quite literally 3 options called breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast is $1.99, lunch is $2.49, and dinner is $3.49.
Now, what is so great about this scene, Nathan, is the lead up to that moment.
Yes.
Because they open the menu, they have a look, and they go, oh, well, I guess we'll get up breakfast. Breakfast. I guess that's the option. And that just shows you the menu, and it is absolutely hilarious.
It is only
you
breakfast.
just see these three options, which are just,
So looking at their prices, right? So $2 for brekkie. I think it is just going to be an egg you get for brekkie, right?
Yeah, like I think it's a couple eggs, a couple strips of bacon, and the
That's pretty good for $2.
mate. Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
For $2.
I love that it goes up a little bit for each meal.
So it makes you think, what are you getting in the other?
What's lunch and dinner?
I don't know.
I reckon lunch. Okay, for $2.49, I reckon lunch is maybe just like one sandwich, like a really shitty sandwich.
Yeah, I think dinner's probably, like, you're not going to get a roast dinner. I'm not sure
No.
about that. Nathan, I'd be interested to see what these prices are today at the same diner. Like, I'd like to see with inflation what we're looking at in terms.
You know
of...
what, Brenton? You must have you been to a cafe or restaurant like this where there's like just like maybe like 4 or 5 things on the menu?
Yeah, dude, of course.
You need to know it going in. Because, like, if you do, like, 5 excellent things, then, yeah, I'm all for it. But I have, like, generally just, like, felt like a feed, and I'm like, what the fuck? You do, like, 5 things, and they're all shitty. Like, they're so bloody common.
But it's part of the charm, Nathan. It's part of the charm.
I love it, mate. You and I should go to a small town. We should get some shitty breakfast.
Sounds good. Maybe it's not shitty, though. Maybe that was really tasty. We never found out.
I don't think so, mate. If you saw what that chef was doing, like, it's no good.
Hey, Nathan, shall we look at this movie's poster?
Brenton,
Yes,
let's look at this film's poster.
but is it art?
So, looking at this movie's poster, I actually really, really like it. I think it's a
Same.
wonderful aesthetic, and I think it really tells us what the movie's about, and it's quite entertaining.
I think this is probably one of the best taglines on a movie poster.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that for sure.
Because it says, there have been many courtroom dramas that have glorified the great American legal system. This isn't one of them. So it kind of lets you know from the get-go that there's going to be some good comedy to come.
I also like the line under the title, My Cousin Vinny, a comedy of trial and error.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And like the poster, links below, listeners, if you want to see the poster. But like what it is just like Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei like kind of like leaning in the corridor of the aisle while the judge is kind of pointing at them from the seat in an empty courtroom.
My favorite element of this poster is actually the judge's face in the background.
Yeah.
What is he doing?
It's kind of like giving like a weird point to the camera, but like, and he looks like very startled. He's like, ooh, it's pretty good. I also love in this poster that we do get Marissa Tomei and Joe Pesci both wearing their sunglasses because they have some of the most ridiculous glasses I've ever seen in my life.
I love it too. It's fantastic. Yeah, dude, I just think this is a really good poster. I think it's got a great aesthetic, and I love it. Like, I think it really adds to, it really gives off what the tone of the film and what it's about. And yeah, I think I
wouldn't improve it at all.
Can't say I would hang this on my wall, but I would consider it. I'd strongly consider it. I don't know what I'd take down to hang this one up is my issue.
Maybe the Blade poster with Quinn, you know. We'll put that away.
No. That is staying up for all time. That is a permanent place. That has got a permanent place in my poster wall for sure.
Well, title talk.
Ooh, it's the title.
My cousin Vinny. Brenton, we have a movie where the title line is said, and it was a very yeet moment.
It was. But Nathan, that's not the question we should be asking. The
No.
question we should be asking was my cousin Vinny in My Cousin Vinny?
Do you have a cousin Vinny?
Well, my cousin Vinny was not in My Cousin Vinny, so
Where was your cousin Vinny?
he doesn't exist.
Oh, in your imagination, I thought so.
Yes, exactly. He's my imaginary friend.
Could you imagine as a child having an imaginary friend that was Joe Pesci? That's a traumatic childhood.
I can imagine it, but yeah, I think you'd have to ask some serious questions as to what that child's mental state is like.
Yeah. Ooh.
I do think you're funny, Joe. I do. I swear, I do. What's wrong with you, young Brenton? Oh, nothing, Mum, nothing.
I'm just seeing this terrible lawyer from Jersey. Back to the therapist you go. Not again.
What about you? You got a cousin named Vincent?
No, I did. My second car was called Vinny. So yeah.
There you go.
My first car was called Greg, but my second car was called Vinny because the license plates letters were VXJ. So I thought VJ that could kind of stand for Vinny Jones.
Yeah, okay.
Who plays his most iconic role, obviously, is the Juggernaut in X-Men 3.
Of course.
So yeah, so I have a car called Vinny. So my car Vinny, that'd be great. Oh my god, just adapt this into like a Cars movie.
What a great title.
Just like
My car Vinny. Maybe it's a spin-off from Cars, Pixar's Cars.
Oh, I could see Maida having a car Vinny. He is in the movie, like the cousin of the boy in trouble. He's in this movie. I forgive it for a title. I think it's good.
Yeah.
I think it works what the movie is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's catchy. It's a good title. I think it's really good.
All right, well, let's pass it to the people.
Pass it here.
What?
The power to the people.
So if you, our lovely listeners, go to the Tomato Meter, there is a critical consensus for this film, which is 86%, and there is an audience score of 87%, a whole 1% more than the critics. Wow, people like this movie.
And you know what? This film made bank. Because, it cost $11 million to make, made $64 million. It'd be interesting to start today if this would make bank in the cinemas, like, COVID aside. Like, I feel like this would do well on Netflix, having like a second life there. It feels like a direct to Netflix kind of movie. That made sense.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like everything on streaming services seems to be going pretty well.
Yeah,
it
especially
seems to be
comedies.
providing a platform that a lot of people are tuning in. Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. Yeah, but if we actually go to the specific reviews, we can read Anthony Lane from Independent, who's a top critic, gave it a positive review and said, "My cousin Vinny slumps badly as the courtroom scenes drag on, but when Tomei is on screen, even the jury wakes up." Oh, what a good line.
It's funny because I didn't find myself bored with this movie, but I can see in hindsight that I can
No.
tell already that like I'm gonna remember Tomei the most. Like it's gonna be Marissa's like film. I know I can just see that's what I'm gonna remember most fondly.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah,
So,
but
yeah.
in saying that, I agree with you. I disagree that it dragged on.
Yeah, because like it kind of like Stephen Hunter from the Baltimore Sun kind of echoes that. He says, "I don't want to oversell My Cousin Vinny. It's hardly brilliant, but it's easygoing, occasionally quite funny, and ultimately satisfying."
This is basically our opinion, right? This is a perfect summation of that.
But it doesn't feel like a fine film. It still feels like a good film.
Yeah.
Because it takes it knows what it is. So like, it kind of gets away with kind of not reaching those high art kind of like, themes or poles, if that makes sense.
Yeah, which not everything has to be. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at Brenton.
yeah, I'm a solid 7 out of 10. and I'm happy with that. Owen Glelberman from Entertainment Weekly says, "My Cousin Vinny is the definition of obvious. And it's way too long. Do films like this really need an hour's worth of setup? But Pesci and Tomei make a first-rate team."
It's interesting because, like, I can see what he's trying to say. It's like, okay, what if we just, like, got into this courtroom and we just have this, like, we immediately see this Jersey lawyer kind of, like, fucking up. But, like, I do like the build-up because we're imagining as an audience, like, how he's going to fuck up because we can so see he is.
Yeah.
So I do think that's an essential ingredient. I don't think, like, the screenplay would work if we didn't have that. So I kind of disagree with what Owen's saying there.
Yeah, I kind of do too. I think from my point of view, it wasn't so much waiting for him to fuck up, but it was more waiting to see if he was actually competent. Like, I didn't want him to fuck up. I was like, oh, please have something to offer. Otherwise, this is going to be a slow, painful drive. You know what I mean? It's just going to be, never going anywhere.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And Roger Ebert, the great critic from the Chicago Sun-Times, didn't like it, Brent, and gave it 2.5 out of 4 and wrote, "It's the kind of movie home video was invented for. Not worth the trip to the theater, but slam it into the VCR and get your rental's worth."
I get Roger's points.
Yeah.
I get this. Like, I understand what he's saying, because it's kind of what we were saying with the Thursday night. If you just need something to watch, this is
so cozy. It's so at home, isn't it? Like, I wouldn't go to a cinema to see something like this. It's not exactly cinematic in that sense. Like,
yeah, I agree. And I don't think it's necessarily a criticism. I just think it's saying for what it is. So, yeah, I think it's a great point.
yeah, I agree.
Vinny,
Vinny!
cousin Vinny M,
He's writing it
gave
himself.
it 4 stars and says, "Pretty good movie. It was very funny and good the first time, but it gets old the second time. But it's still good to rent, maybe. Not buy." See, Vinny, I don't know. Like, my whole thing is that I think I'd enjoy this on a second viewing. But hey, I haven't done that yet, so
You know what?
you'll have to wait and see.
I think it'd be a great date movie as well.
Yeah.
Because especially, like, seeing, like, Marissa and Joe go back and forth, like, I think that'd be really fun to, sit there with your girlfriend or boyfriend and just kind of mirror that chemistry that you see in the movie. I think there'd be some good banter.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, don't mirror all of it because you might get into some strained arguments. But, mirror some of it. Mirror the good times.
Our favorite reviewer, Blobbo X.
Blobbo's back in
He's
a big way.
Back in a big way, and he gave it 5 stars, and he said, "Blobbo gives 6 blobs if possible." And Brenton, that just makes me grin ear to ear.
Mate, it is possible to give 6 blobs, but just don't tell us how you do it.
Love it.
Yeah, bass player said, "I'm a retired master ASE tech, and everything she says in this movie about cars is correct. I'm impressed by the effort someone went to research this information."
Which is extraordinary. Like, and it sounds legit, doesn't it? Even though I'm not let her on cars, but, like, it sounds like she knows what she's talking about. Like, she's great.
And, what's great is that that doesn't just apply to the cars. It applies to the courtroom as well. As you said before, it's wonderful to see something that, even though it's a comedy, they've still put in the effort to really make sure that it's as accurate as possible. So kudos to you guys, to the whole team involved. It was worth it.
And you know what was worth it, Brenton? My cousin Vinny.
Cousin Vinny is always worth it. Always worth a visit to Vinny's.
Because that's where he was. He was here in New Jersey all along, Brenton.
Well, Nathan, it was wonderful to talk about Cousin Vinny. Thank you very much for joining me today, and thank you very much to our listeners for joining us today. If you like this or kind of like it or can tolerate us, please consider heading on over to our social pages on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and send us an email like we said earlier in the episode and tell us what old movies you would like us to review. On top of that, tell us what you thought of Cousin Vinny, because Taylor, I know, would love to hear your feedback.
He would. We'll forward all the emails to him. Just like, here you go. Here's all your Vinny fans. So, and if you've ever been to court and you've ever spectated a court case, let us know. Like, did you ever see anything entertaining or interesting, or were you involved in one? It's like, it'd be interesting to see what people say.
But until then, Nathan.
Oh, you know what? I haven't gotten sleep for days, so I'm just leaving the house, Brenton. I'm just gonna sleep in a nice open lawn. So I'll catch you later, mate. I'm gonna go to bed.
Nathan, watch out for the dew, but enjoy the sleep.
Mate, I'll show you, Jew.
Please don't.